They dismissed her as just a maid. What she hid at home stunned everyone. Selena Johnson had always been seen as invisible within the tech company in Seattle. To many, she was just a janitor who walked the glass corridors, ignored by the corporate elite. Nathan Whitman, the powerful CEO, would never have imagined that behind that simple woman was a strength and talent capable of transforming not only his worldview but also the course of his own life. Amid humiliations, surprising discoveries, and encounters that change destinies, a truth begins to emerge. Wealth and power mean nothing in the face of the dignity and courage of someone who refuses to be silenced. And when the two worlds collide, a path of love, pain, and redemption begins to be traced in a story that will hold your attention until the very last moment. Before we begin this emotional story, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love to know how far our stories reach. And if you like love stories full of emotion, overcoming obstacles, and plot twists, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss any of the upcoming stories, and you'll help this project grow and continue bringing content that touches the heart. Selena Johnson appears in the main hall at 7:02 a.m., her freshly ironed yellow uniform glowing under the cold light of the glass walls. The building of the tech giant in Seattle breathes efficiency. Polished floors echoing hurried footsteps, floor-to-ceiling glass panels showing the gray sky and misty drizzle hanging in the air, receptionists with trained smiles, the subtle scent of expensive coffee. Selena walks with a spotless cart, cloths folded by color and purpose, labeled spray bottles, fitted gloves, and a demeanor that defies the rush of the place. Velvety brown skin, black curly hair tied in a low bun, large brown eyes that observe without haste. She doesn't need a badge to exist there, but every day, it seems she has to present herself in order to be seen. "Good morning, Selena," ventures Ray, the kind security guard in his 50s who holds the revolving door. "Good morning, Ray." Her voice is soft but firm. Selena adjusts her sleeve, takes a deep breath, and heads toward the north corridor, a long glass hallway that spans 2 floors like a transparent runway. Above, quiet laughter. 2 marketing analysts lean against the railing, watching. "She's beautiful." "Look at her posture," one whispers, too low to be heard by anyone who isn't listening. "Beautiful and invisible," the other replies, biting back a comment that turns into a muffled laugh. Selena passes with the microfiber mop, cleaning fingerprint smudges no one admits to leaving. She doesn't demand, doesn't confront. Her way is different. Precision, care, dignity. She cleans, checks the shine on the glass, checks the reflection, and only then moves on. Every few feet, the same choreography. The cart halts, the mop glides, the gloves rotate, the cloth folds at the end like finishing a well-written sentence. In the mirrored elevator, she and the cart ride alone. For a second, her face occupies 4 sides: the woman, the uniform, the bun, the eyes that hold oceans. She checks her phone without unlocking it, just the time. No new messages. She closes her hand, puts the device away. The elevator descends 2 floors and opens into the east corridor, the artery that leads to the executive's office. Nathan Whitman crosses the turnstile with the confidence of someone who decides the fate of dozens of projects. Tall, fair-skinned, charcoal gray tailored suit, ash brown hair perfectly styled, green eyes that scan numbers before people. On his left, his assistant updates him in a low voice. "Investor meeting at 9. The cost report is in your email, sir. The VP of Operations asked for 5 minutes at the end. Cut what's not performing." "I deliver results, not excuses," Nathan replies, without breaking stride. Selena exits the elevator and, by instinct, pulls her cart aside to give way. The two worlds cross like parallel lines, pretending to touch for just a second. Nathan passes less than a meter from her. His scent, dry, sophisticated, mixes with the light citrus smell of the cleaner from the cart's spray bottle. His eyes don't land on her. Not today. Not yet. Careful with the wheels on the mat, please. The voice comes from a communications manager, flawless beige blazer, tablet in hand, and fidgety fingers. The mat's fibers catch, you know? Hard to clean afterward. Of course, says Selena, pulling the cart with extra care. I've adjusted the wheels. It won't catch. The manager half smiles, not really listening, and moves on. Beside her, two interns exchange messages and giggles. She thinks she's on a runway. Just because that yellow uniform stands out, one comments. If I were her, I'd keep walking. Less show, more work. The other replies, eyes never leaving the phone. Selena hears it, but doesn't react. Her revenge, for now, is the flawless shine of the glass. She wipes the frame, removes one last grease mark missed by the hurried. As she works, her mind arranges thoughts the same way she arranges the cart. One shelf for the month's bills, another for the grocery list, another, silent and sacred, for what she keeps at home, which no one there could ever imagine. In the executive break room, the barista Arturo steps forward when he sees her. Good morning, Selena. Want a coffee before the rush? If I accept, you'll say I finished the stock, she jokes, her eyes lighting up for a second. I'll say it was the CEO who drank it all. Arturo laughs. Small coffee, no sugar, as always. Thanks. She takes the cup, warming her hands on the heat escaping the lid. The glass needs patience today. Glass is a building's ego. It freaks out over anything, he says quietly, drawing a laugh from her that doesn't break her composure. At 8:15, the design team crosses the hallway in a group. Someone bumps into the cart, and a bottle wobbles. The designer hurries. Sorry. We're late for alignment with the CFO. No problem, says Selena. Quick visual check, everything in place. Good meeting. Thanks, Martina, sweetheart. The word sweetheart comes overly sweet, like offering candy to silence a child. Selena turns the cart and heads to the company's awards gallery, a row of metallic trophies lit by cool spotlights. While cleaning the display case, she hears measured footsteps and Nathan's voice on the phone, sharp without being loud. I need predictability. If the contractor doesn't deliver, replace them. I don't have time for noise. He slows for a moment at the corner. Selena lowers her head to reach the bottom edge of the glass. The reflection returns the image of both on the same plane, separated by a transparent layer. He walks past. The glass remains. Selena, Luke, Rosa Alvarez, cleaning team supervisor, approaches with a clipboard. Early 40s, light accent, protective demeanor. Priorities changed. Horizon Room has a VIP visit at 9. Can you fit it in? I can. Selena gathers the cloth, adjusts her gloves. I'll finish here and head straight there. Rosa looks at her a second longer, like someone listening to a song others pretend not to hear. Are you okay? I am. Selena's smile is an open window on a rainy day. It doesn't change the weather, but it changes the air inside. Today I'm going slow. On the way to the Horizon Room, she crosses paths with Victoria Lang, the Vice President of Operations, high heels, bold perfume, gaze that weighs and measures. Victoria doesn't speak. She assesses. Selena is used to this kind of silence. It's a kind of word. Can you take this to the trash? An executive hands her a used paper cup without looking at the face receiving it. Selena takes the cup with the same elegance a conductor lifts a baton. It's not servitude. It's a choice of posture. She places the cup in the proper bag, presses the pedal, ties it with precision. When she arrives at the horizon room, the outer glass has marks from anxious hands. Selena sprays, wipes in long diagonal strokes, then small circles around the edges. Each gesture says, "I'm here," even when no one says her name. Morning light grows timidly on the other side of the glass. The city exhales, the clouds shift. Selena finishes, steps back, and observes. The hallway returns the image without noise. That's how she likes it. The world seeing itself spotless as it passes by her. On the other side, Nathan reappears, now with 2 directors and a foreign consultant. He speaks of metrics, deadlines, costs. The room breathes power and rigidity. Selena, outside, folds and stores the cloth. The glass is perfect. He still hasn't looked at her. "There," she whispers to herself, almost like a prayer. "Now you shine." The horizon room now filled with firm voices and clicking keyboards. A group of executives adjusted papers and presentation screens over the long, dark wooden table. Selena Johnson had finished cleaning the outer glass and was silently leaving, pushing her cleaning cart down the side corridor. But one detail would change everything. A forgotten coffee cup, poorly placed on top of a stack of reports at the edge of the table. Victoria Lang, the vice president of operations, rushed in, high heels pounding like hammers on the polished floor. She noticed the dark stain beginning to spread down the side of the documents. The silence of the room was cut by her sharp voice. Who let this mess happen? Victoria held up the blurred pages, the liquid still dripping from her gloved fingers. Eyes met, some quickly looking away, until they landed on Selena, still pushing her cart a few feet away. It was her, accused Victoria, with a tone that left no room for reply. "I saw her near the table a moment ago. Must have been carelessness." Selena stopped walking. Her heart tightened in her chest, but her posture didn't falter. She turned slowly, brown eyes steady. Gloves still clean. "Excuse me, Miss Lang, I did not touch those documents," she said, her voice low but clear. "I had only just finished cleaning the glass." A murmur spread across the table. Some executives exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Nathan Whitman, the CEO, raised his hand, asking for silence. His green gaze fell on Selena like a blade. "Victoria has my trust," said Nathan, his voice cold and cutting. "If she says there was carelessness, I believe her. We need professionalism, not distractions." The words weighed more than the accusation itself. Selena felt her eyes well up, but she took a deep breath and kept her chin up. She would not defend herself by shouting, nor would she beg for credit. Her dignity was her only armor. "Understood, Mr. Whitman," she replied, without trembling. "I'll excuse myself." Victoria, satisfied, set the stained reports on the table like trophies from a small and cruel victory. But as Selena pushed her cart toward the door, her eyes sparkled in a way no one expected, not with defeat, but with a silent promise. In the reflection of the glass wall, Nathan watched her. Something in the way she walked, upright, not looking back, stirred something strange inside him. Why did that woman, accused and humiliated, still radiate so much strength? The door closed behind her, but the question remained. The building was almost empty that Tuesday night. The lights of the 15th floor reflected off the glass windows, blending with the damp glow of Seattle under the fine rain. Nathan Whitman had stayed in the office longer than usual. Piles of reports, performance charts, and unanswered messages on his phone kept him stuck there. He closed the leather folder with a heavy sigh, finally ready to leave. As he walked through the silent hallways, he noticed a sound that didn't belong in the emptiness. It wasn't the clink of machines or the echo of rushed footsteps. It was voices, soft, rhythmic voices coming from the employee break room. He frowned, curious. At this hour, who could still be there? He approached slowly, and as he stopped in front of the slightly open door, he heard words that surprised him. It wasn't English. Il était une fois une jeune fille qui croyait que son silence était sa prison. Mais en vérité, c'était sa clé de liberté. The voice was gentle, melodious, with perfect pronunciation. He leaned closer and discreetly peeked inside. There, Selena Johnson sat on a simple chair, her uniform still spotless despite the long hours of work. Around her, 3 maintenance employees listened in silence, enchanted as she read in French from a worn-out book with a navy blue cover and yellowed pages. "You speak French like you've lived in Paris," one of the men said, almost in a whisper. Selena smiled, closing the book for a moment. "I taught myself, between shifts and long nights. The language kept me company when the world didn't seem to hear me." The words touched Nathan in an unexpected way. He leaned against the wall, absorbing every syllable. The woman who had been humiliated hours earlier was now revealing herself to be different, almost radiant. Another employee, her eyes misty, asked, "Read a little more." "Selena, your voice calms us. It feels like everything gets lighter." Selena opened the book again and continued. Her tone shifted with the dialogues, sometimes firm, sometimes delicate, as if French were her native tongue. It was impossible not to be drawn in by the cadence, the confidence, the emotion that flowed in every sentence. Nathan, hidden in the hallway's shadow, felt the impact. The usual rigidity in his chest gave way to something unfamiliar, a mix of admiration and discomfort. How could he have believed she was just another cleaning lady? How many other things was he ignoring around him? When Selena finished reading, she closed the book gently, almost as if storing a treasure. "Thank you for listening. Sometimes, we just need a story to remind us that hope still exists." The employees said goodbye one by one, grateful, before leaving. Selena was left alone, putting the book back in the simple bag she carried. Then she lifted her eyes and, for a moment, seemed to sense someone's presence. Nathan stepped back too quickly to avoid being seen, his heart pounding as if he'd been caught in the act. He walked away down the silent hallway, but his mind wouldn't let go of the scene. The image of Selena, illuminated by the warm light of the break room, reading in French like a teacher in the middle of a world that ignored her, etched itself into him deeply. For the first time, Nathan realized he may have made a serious mistake by reducing her to a uniform. "Who are you, Selena Johnson?" he murmured to himself, a lump in his throat. If you've made it this far, comment HOPE. That way, I'll know you're connected to the story, and will confuse anyone who only reads the comments. The next morning, the building buzzed with unusual movement. The parking lot was packed with black luxury cars, and in the lobby, security guards and receptionists bustled in a nervous dance. Selena Johnson, as always, moved through with her cleaning cart, discreet but attentive to every detail of the environment. The atmosphere was different, filled with anticipation. On the 18th floor, the tension peaked. Nathan Whitman paced back and forth in the conference room, eyes fixed on his wristwatch. Around him, directors spoke in hushed tones, while Victoria Lang adjusted the presentation slides. The foreign investors, newly arrived from France and Germany, waited. But the hired translator had not shown up. "This is unacceptable," muttered Victoria, adjusting her glasses. "They barely understand English. Without translation, this meeting will be a disaster." One of the directors tried to calm the situation. "We could reschedule. Mr. Whitman." Nathan raised his voice. "Sharp. Reschedule. With international investors who flew across the ocean? That would be an insult. We need a solution now." At that moment, the door opened quietly. Selena, with her flawless uniform and serene face, entered to collect the coffee cups from the earlier setup. She heard every word, but kept her composure. As she arranged the tray, she took a deep breath. The courage that had so often sustained her in silence took shape in her voice. "Mr. Whitman," she said, firm but respectful. Everyone in the room turned, surprised. "If I may, I can help." Victoria laughed, a short, bitter laugh. "You, the translator." "Nathan, this is ridiculous." But Selena didn't back down. "I speak fluent French and German. If you'd like, I can translate. I won't let the company be embarrassed due to lack of options." Silence fell. Nathan stared at her, his green eyes trying to figure out if it was courage or audacity. For a moment, he seemed ready to dismiss her, but the steadiness in her gaze unsettled him. "All right," he finally said, his voice lower than usual. "Let's give it a try." The investors looked at each other, confused, until the president of the French group began. "Nous espérons que cette rencontre apportera confiance et transparence." With flawless elegance, Selena translated, "They hope this meeting brings confidence and transparency." Heads nodded. Immediately afterward, one of the Germans added, "Wir müssen auch die langfristige Stabilität betrachten." And Selena, without hesitation, they asked that long-term stability also be considered. Each sentence flowed like music. There was no stumble, no uncertainty. Selena's voice filled the room, weaving two cultures together with precision. The meeting, once seemingly lost, became a communication success. Even the directors, once skeptical, began to smile subtly. Nathan, seated at the head of the table, watched in silence. His heart tightened with every phrase she translated flawlessly. It was impossible to ignore. The woman he'd considered invisible until yesterday was now the bridge keeping his empire standing. At the end, one of the investors stood and shook Selena's hand. "Votre aide a tout changé. Merci, mademoiselle." She replied in the same tone, in perfect French, drawing astonished looks from those present. When the foreign visitors left, satisfied, the room erupted in comments. Victoria kept a stiff face but couldn't hide her discomfort. Nathan remained quiet, just staring at Selena. For the first time, his gaze held no disdain, but something he himself couldn't understand. "Mr. Whitman," said Selena simply, placing the neatly arranged tray on the sideboard. "The meeting went well. If you'll excuse me, I'll return to my work." She walked out with steady steps, leaving behind a trail of silence and admiration. Nathan followed her with his eyes until the door closed, his chest heavy with shame and curiosity. Something new was beginning, something he never imagined he would feel. That night stayed etched in Nathan Whitman's memory. The image of Selena leading the meeting with ease wouldn't leave his mind. There was something about her that defied every definition he knew. It was as if, suddenly, the woman he thought was invisible had become an enigma he couldn't ignore. The next day, seeing her crossing the lobby with her cleaning cart, he decided to discreetly follow her after her shift. Selena left the building late, wearing a simple jacket over her uniform. She walked to a distant bus stop, unaware that Nathan's eyes were following from a few meters behind. He got into his luxury car and followed her through Seattle's damp streets until the glass towers faded and gave way to duplex houses, small neighborhood shops, and narrow sidewalks. The bus stopped near a dead-end street. Selena got off and walked to a modest brick house with a small makeshift ramp at the entrance. Nathan parked a few meters away, turned off the engine, and watched through the window. From inside the house, a warm light spilled through the worn curtains. He saw Selena open the door and be greeted by a young woman, about 20 years old, in a wheelchair. The joy on both their faces hit him like a silent punch to the chest. "You took a while today," said the sister, smiling eagerly. "It was a long day." "But I'm here now, Mia," Selena replied, kneeling in front of her and holding her fragile hands. "And I brought a surprise, sweet bread from the downtown bakery." The young woman laughed with childlike excitement. "You always remember me." Nathan, outside, felt the knot in his throat tighten. He hadn't expected to see that woman, who in the company was the target of cruel comments and indifferent glances, now transformed into a pillar of tenderness and strength. Shortly after, Selena helped Mia move toward a piano resting against the living room wall. The instrument was old, with some keys yellowed by time, but it still held its dignity. Selena positioned her sister correctly and, with care, began to play. The first notes filled the house, and soon her voice emerged, crystal clear, captivating, as if coming from a sacred place within her. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound. Mia closed her eyes, moved. "Your voice, Selena. It's like heaven opens just for us." Selena smiled through quiet tears. "I sing to remember that there's still light, even when everything seems dark." Nathan brought his hand to his mouth, trying to contain his emotions. The contrast was brutal. Within the glass corridors, Selena was reduced to someone invisible. Here, in her modest home, Taman, she was a beacon of love and talent. He realized he had never met anyone so strong and so full of integrity. The final notes echoed through the room, and Mia clapped, laughing through her tears. Selena hugged her sister tightly, like someone making a silent promise never to let go. Outside, Nathan remained motionless, unable to leave. What he had just witnessed stirred not only his thoughts but something deeper, an area of his soul he believed had long been closed off. He turned on the car, but didn't drive away immediately. He sat there, staring at his own reflection in the rearview mirror, torn between the shame of having judged that woman and a strange need to be closer to her in a way he didn't yet understand. The days following Nathan's discovery were intense. He couldn't forget the image of Selena at the piano, singing to her sister. Still, the company's routine left no room for distraction, and before long, a new crisis struck the board of directors. One of their most important projects had been sabotaged. Deleted reports, distorted numbers, and unrealistic deadlines appeared out of nowhere, putting millions of dollars and the company's credibility at risk. Emergency meetings were called. The conference room was full. Voices overlapped in desperation. Nathan, dressed in a dark suit, stared at the screen showing flawed graphs, while Victoria Lang, with her cold expression, seized the moment to launch the accusation. "The system logs show the password used was from the cleaning department," she said, in a calculated tone. And who had that password? Selena Johnson. All eyes turned to the door, where Selena, called in suddenly, entered without understanding. She was still holding her gloves, her hands trembling, but her steady gaze did not falter. "I never had access to the company's systems," she replied calmly. "I only take care of the hallways, the rooms, not the computers. This is a mistake." Victoria held up the papers as if they were undeniable evidence. "It's all here. The system records the time. And guess what? It happened exactly during her shift. Selena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the trap. For a moment, she hoped Nathan would step in, that he would see the truth in her eyes. But the board was pressing hard, and his silence hurt more than the accusation itself. Mr. Whitman, one of the directors, said impatiently, "We need an immediate decision. If the company doesn't act, the investors will lose confidence." Nathan, torn between his intuition and the pressure surrounding him, closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, his voice came out cold. "Selena Johnson, you are dismissed. From this moment forward, you are no longer part of the company." The room fell silent. Selena felt her legs weaken, but she kept her head high. Her eyes filled with tears, but none fell yet. She drew a breath, like someone storing a secret in their chest, and replied with dignity, "If that's your decision, Mr. Whitman, I accept. But one day, the truth will come out. And when it does, you'll remember this moment." She turned her back without waiting for a reply. The hallways she had once walked invisibly now seemed even longer, each step echoing like a farewell. Employees watched in silence, some with compassion, others with indifference. As she passed through the main door, the tears finally fell, but not from defeat. They were tears of a promise. From the top floor of the building, through the glass wall, Nathan watched her leave. His chest tightened, but he didn't move a muscle. Between the company's pressure and the courage of that woman, he had chosen the wrong path. Outside, Selena lifted her face to Seattle's gray sky and murmured to herself, "I will never let myself be humiliated again." And with firm steps, she disappeared into the night, carrying not just pain, but the seed of something greater. Months had passed since Selena Johnson's dismissal. Winter had given way to a vibrant spring in Seattle, but for Nathan Whitman, the days remained gray. He went through his routine like an automaton, accumulating business victories that no longer brought him satisfaction. Still, that night, he found himself obligated to attend the most anticipated charity gala of the year, a gathering of politicians, business leaders, and artists in halls lit by crystal chandeliers, with champagne flutes and orchestral music in the background. Nathan entered with his usual commanding posture, surrounded by superficial greetings. Conversations about profits, investments, and mergers echoed everywhere. Yet, amid the sparkling dresses and excessive luxury, something unexpected happened. The master of ceremonies announced with enthusiasm, "Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor tonight to welcome a special guest, the woman behind a social project that has been transforming the lives of young people in our city. A woman who, through courage and talent, proved that true change comes from where no one expects. Please welcome Selena Johnson." The room fell silent. Double doors opened, and Selena entered. She was no longer the woman in the yellow uniform everyone knew from the office corridors. She wore a red silk dress, elegantly fitted to her figure, with a modest neckline and a flowing train that seemed to dance with each step. Her hair was down in soft waves, her bangs falling gently over her face. The glow in her brown eyes radiated strength and calm. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some women whispered, overcome with envy. Several men couldn't take their eyes off her. Nathan, upon seeing her, froze. His heart raced in a way he hadn't felt since youth. "Her," he whispered to himself, unable to believe it. Selena walked through the room with confident steps, every detail exuding dignity. She stepped onto the stage, greeted by warm applause. The master of ceremonies handed her the microphone. "Good evening," she said, her voice echoing both sweet and assured. I was born and raised in a neighborhood where dreams were often swallowed by reality. For a long time, I believed my destiny was only to survive. But I discovered that no one is invisible once they decide to rise. I created this project so that young people like my sister, and so many others, can find a space to show their talents, their voices, their dreams. Today, they are no longer alone. The room burst into applause. People rose to their feet. Selena smiled, moved, and from somewhere in the audience, a group of teenagers raised signs with messages of gratitude. Nathan, still stunned, couldn't take his eyes off her. The woman he had coldly dismissed was now standing before the elite. People who had always respected only power and wealth, yet who now bowed to the brilliance of someone carrying a much greater truth. Victoria Lang, at another table, swallowed hard as she watched Selena triumph. Envy painted her face with barely disguised shame. Nathan, for his part, felt a mix of pride and regret. His world, made of steel and numbers, suddenly felt small compared to what Selena had built. A new strength rose inside him, along with the painful awareness that he had lost the chance to stand beside her when she needed it most. As the applause continued, Selena stepped down from the stage and walked through the room. The chandelier lights reflected off her red dress, making her shine like the true jewel of the evening. When her eyes met Nathan's, for a second, time seemed to stop. He stood up instinctively, but didn't have the courage to approach. Selena held his gaze calmly and kept walking, leaving him trapped between the shame of the past and the spark of a feeling being born against his will. The orchestra music still filled the hall, but to Nathan Whitman, everything sounded muffled. The loudest sound was the racing beat of his own heart. For the first time in months, he let go of his unshakable CEO stance and crossed the ballroom toward Selena Johnson. She was surrounded by guests, receiving warm congratulations. But when Nathan approached, the air seemed to shift. "Selena," he said in a low, almost hesitant tone. She turned slowly. The red dress shimmered under the lights, but the shine in her eyes was restrained, firm. "Mr. Whitman," she replied, without emotion in her voice. He took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you, just for a moment." Selena stood tall. "I don't believe there's anything that needs to be said." "There is," he replied, his voice now more human, almost pleading. "I was wrong. I was blind. I let pressure make me doubt your integrity. I fired the wrong person and, worse, I hurt someone who should never have been hurt." The guests nearby sensed the tension and discreetly stepped away, leaving them in a nearly private space. Selena gripped her small clutch and let out a bitter smile. "You threw me out like I was disposable," she said, her voice tight. "While I cried in the cold that night, you slept in the comfort of your penthouse, and now you come here, in front of everyone, to ask for forgiveness." Nathan lowered his eyes, the CEO mask falling little by little. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, hear me out." He took a step closer. "After I lost my wife, I built walls so I wouldn't feel anything. I thought that if I stayed distant, nothing could hurt me. But the truth is, I was alone, suffocating in silence. When I saw you singing to your sister, when I saw you turn pain into hope, I realized you were the one reminding me what it means to live." The words hit Selena hard. Her heart beat faster, but her mind was still screaming in warning. "And when the next pressure comes, when someone tries to use me as a scapegoat again, will you believe me, or will you throw me away again?" Nathan lifted his face, his green eyes teary for the first time in years. "This time, I'll fight. Not for numbers, not for titles, but for you. Because I've lost enough to know that I can't lose you too." Selena looked away, trying to hold back tears. The memory of the humiliation was still an open wound, but there was something in his voice, a truth that couldn't be faked. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision in her chest. "I don't know if I can believe you, Nathan," she said at last, her voice low, almost a whisper. He stepped a little closer, respecting her space but showing vulnerability. "Then let me prove it, not with words, but with actions." Selena closed her eyes for a moment. The ballroom around her seemed distant, and only the two of them remained, caught in that moment of pain, hope, and fear. When she opened her eyes again, she was still hesitant, but her heart was no longer the same. The night of the gala still echoed in Nathan and Selena's memories. He, vulnerable like never before, was trying to rebuild a bridge with words and promises. She, torn between the pain of the past and the spark of hope for the future. But fate, ever ironic, held a revelation that would change everything. From the other side of the ballroom, a voice rose amid the elegant murmurs. It was board member, Mr. Robert Ellis, a man with silver hair and a stern look. He held in his hand a thick envelope, as if carrying a stick of dynamite about to explode. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" he said firmly. The room fell silent. The musicians stopped playing. "We've received the results of the independent audit on the sabotage scandal that nearly cost the company billions." Selena felt her heart race. Nathan instantly became alert. Robert opened the envelope and continued. "The system was tampered with, yes, but not by cleaning staff. The access was forged, intentionally set up to frame someone innocent." Gasps and murmurs echoed through the ballroom. All eyes turned to the executives present. Nathan, jaw tight, asked, "And who was responsible for that?" Robert raised the documents with a steady hand. "The evidence points directly to the Vice President of Operations, Victoria Lang." The impact was immediate. An outraged buzz swept through the room. Victoria, dressed in navy blue, stood up abruptly. "This is outrageous. I've been loyal to this company. This is a setup." But Robert cut her off, relentless. "We have login records, intercepted messages, and even suspicious financial transfers." Ms. Payne, Lang manipulated the system to incriminate Selena Johnson, motivated by jealousy and fear of her closeness with the CEO. Everyone turned to Selena, who was breathing heavily, trying to absorb what she was hearing. The pain she had carried since her dismissal now turned into shock and freedom. Nathan stood up suddenly, his face hardened with fury. "You destroyed her reputation. You made me see her as guilty when she was the most innocent and honorable person this company has ever known. Victoria, you didn't just sabotage a project. You sabotaged lives." Victoria tried to approach him, desperate. "Nathan, I did it for us. You were letting yourself be charmed by her. I just wanted to protect you, to protect what we built together." Selena, now with a steady voice, finally spoke up. "Protect? No, Ms. Lang. What you did was destroy, but the truth always finds a way to come out." The ballroom erupted in applause, not only for Selena's courage, but for the public unmasking of a woman who had hidden behind power. Security guards discreetly approached, and Victoria was escorted out under a wave of boos. Nathan turned to Selena, his eyes wet but now filled with conviction. "I failed you, but justice has been done. Your name is clear, Selena." She took a deep breath, feeling her dignity return to the place it had never truly left. "My name was always clear, Nathan." The world just needed to see it. Their gaze lingered longer than any words could express. It was as if the weight of injustice had finally been lifted. But in its place now stood a greater tension. What would they do with this new truth? If you've made it this far, comment truth. That way I'll know you're living this story with me. And we'll still confuse those who only read the comments. The scandal from the gala left deep marks. The mask of arrogance Nathan Whitman had worn for years began to crumble. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid to show who he really was. In the days that followed, he sought out Selena Johnson, not in luxurious offices or gala events, but in the heart of her community, where she continued to devote her time and talent to young people. Nathan walked the narrow neighborhood streets, greeting neighbors who looked at him with suspicion. The walls were painted with colorful murals, children played on the sidewalks, and the distant sound of a church choir revealed a world he had always ignored. There, he found Selena organizing a simple yet vibrant event at a community center. She spoke with teenagers, handed out books, smiled with sincerity. That's where her true strength lived. He approached her humbly. "Selena, I didn't come here as a CEO. I came as a man who needs to learn." She looked at him, surprised, but not unkind. "Learn what, Nathan? That wealth isn't in bank accounts or skyscrapers. It's in what you give, what you share. You showed me that when all my numbers were just empty." Selena stayed silent, feeling the weight of his words. Nathan then took a deep breath, eyes glistening, and knelt in front of her. From the pocket of his simple blazer, he pulled out a small box. The makeshift hall filled with murmurs and gasps. "Selena Johnson," he said, his voice firm but emotional. "I don't just want to love you. I want to walk beside you, learn with you, and share not just victories but pain and struggles too. Marry me, not as an invisible employee, but as an equal, as a partner, as the woman who changed my life." Selena's tears finally fell. The memory of the humiliations, of cold nights, of looks of disdain, flashed through her mind like lightning. But along with it came the memory of her sister smiling at the piano, of the youth who now had hope, and of the man before her, stripped of arrogance, offering not just a ring, but a life beside her. "You hurt me, Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. "But you also showed me that even the hardest hearts can change. And I choose to believe in a love born from overcoming." He closed his eyes, relieved as she reached out her hand. Selena accepted the ring, and the hall erupted in applause. Children ran, neighbors cried. The entire community celebrated as if it were their own victory. Nathan stood and hugged her tightly, feeling that for the first time, he had something no amount of money could buy. Selena, head held high, knew she wasn't there as someone who survived humiliation, but as the protagonist of her own story. In that embrace, two broken lives became whole. And in front of everyone, they proved that dignity and love always win. And so ends this story of pain, overcoming, and true love. Now I want to know, what did you think of it? Leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments so I can understand how much this narrative moved you. If you enjoyed it, like this video, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. And before you go, I've already picked out another emotional story that will touch your heart even more.